we'll have another look at concentration and wisdom as it applies to our meditation practice. In Pali, the two are Samatha and Vipassana. Vipassana means insight or insight wisdom. Samatha, calm or concentration. These are the only two directions that exist in meditation. There are, as I've mentioned already, many different methods. The Buddha taught 40. There are others. But there are only two directions. Whatever method we apply, these two directions need to be included. Some methods are more conducive to calm, some are more conducive to insight. But basically, all of them bring both calm and insight. Now, when we watch the breath, and we actually stay on the breath, and don't do anything else, don't think about yesterday, and don't think about tomorrow, don't want to plan anything or fix up anything, actually are completely with the breath. That's samatha, calm, tranquility, which obviously only arises to a noticeable extent as soon as this calm and continuous application remains with us. However, even a little of it does bring some calm. When we label, so that we know the content of the thought, that brings insight. If the mind is unwilling, restless, anxious, unable to focus, which happens sometimes to people who are used to a lot of thinking, or at times when a lot of distraction is happening. It's much better to focus on insight than it is to focus on calm. Calm is just not going to arise. The mind just doesn't want to stay on the breath. It does everything else except that. And then one may eventually come to the conclusion that it's hopeless, that one isn't suitable for this kind of practice, that one needs to find something else, Tai Chi or whatever it may be, or that one needs to search a little further for a different method. At least what happens is that one loses self-confidence. And that's very damaging in all aspects of life, particularly in meditation, because we have really nothing to go by. We're being told a lot of things and we can't do them. So if I can't do that, then probably I'm not good enough or something like that. But that's a totally wrong approach. A little bit of calm brings a little bit of insight, and a little bit of insight brings a little bit of calm. So if the mind doesn't want to stay on the meditation subject, but keeps thinking and going off on tangents, we can direct it to use its thinking capacity in a profitable manner. In the first instance, by watching the impermanence of each breath. The word insight, the word Vipassana, has a very distinctive meaning in the Buddha's language. It doesn't mean a method. It means something very special. It means an insight into three characteristics that pervade the universe, and thereby us too, because we are part of the universe. These three characteristics in Pali: anicca, dukkha, anatta, impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and corelessness. Now that is what insight, the word insight, actually implies. And as we become aware to a deep and profound extent of any one of those three, we then know the other two also. But on the way to that, little insights arise, because these are necessary as stepping stones. So in the first instance, what we can do when our mind refuses to stay put is to use one of these three characteristics as our focus of attention. The most favorable and the least arguable is impermanence. Very few people can negate it. Very few people can live it, but at least we can use it. Each breath that comes in is finished. Each breath that goes out is finished, and a new one arises. If that were not the case, we'd be dead very soon. If the breath was not changing constantly, there would be no life support. Now, the minute we experience this, and not just believe it because I'm saying so or because the Buddha said so, but experience it ourselves, we gain our foothold in a different perspective. Our life, which is precious to all of us, is totally dependent upon something which has to change moment by moment, millisecond by millisecond. It must change, otherwise no life. Now when that experience arises simply through putting one's mind on the fact that this is so, as we're breathing in, as we're breathing out, it changes, it is impermanent, it finishes, and a new one comes. When that arises as an experience, we can become aware of the fact that we have really very little solidity. We are constantly on the verge of not being here. All that would be necessary would be for the breath to stop through some outer condition which is constantly available. Just think of all the cars on the freeways. The condition of our breath to stop is always there. We are dependent upon this very fragile and transparent, untouchable wind which must change. That is what we depend on to be alive. That's not very solid, is it? On the contrary, it is so substancelessness that we can neither touch it, nor can we see it, except under particular conditions when it's ice cold, We can't do nothing with it except hold it for a moment or expel it heavily. But otherwise, we've got to let it be if we want to stay alive. It's just got to keep going. And it's got to keep changing. Now, when we see ourselves as dependent upon that, the next inference can be all that I'm aware of is also changing. The thoughts which are disrupting my meditation are arising and ceasing, coming and going, changing all the time. I can't hang on to them. I can't hold on to them. I can't even remember them. They're all gone. And yet, it is my premise that they are my thoughts and I'm thinking them. They're me. This is the premise on which our life is based. And yet I can't even remember them. And yet I remember to say me or mine. There's some sort of discrepancy there, a dichotomy of thought processes which do not seem to fit together and therefore need investigation. We are accepting something because it is generally accepted. Everybody does it. Everybody thinks it. Are we really people that do think and say what everybody else is doing? I don't think we'd be sitting here if we were those kinds of people. Those that do say and think what everybody is doing are probably watching their television set right now. So we need to investigate very diligently what it is that makes us believe so deeply and profoundly that these thoughts are me and mine. And yet, there's nothing in them that remains. Nobody can remember what he or she was thinking about at 5 o'clock this afternoon, yesterday, 2 weeks ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 10 minutes ago. What is inner thought? There's the arising and there's the ceasing. And we can be aware of it because they keep coming, don't they? And they also keep going away. And besides labeling them, knowing their content, we now need to look at their character. This is what the Buddha suggested, that we look at the characteristic of whatever we know about ourselves. Now we do know the breath, and we do know our thoughts. We also know our feelings. We become aware of feelings which include emotion and sensation. Now even if we might say, all right, I'm not this body, and maybe I'm not all these thoughts that have been coming and going for such a long time, but I must be something. So I'm my feelings. I'm in touch with my feelings. So I am those feelings. Well, can anybody remember their feelings? Luckily, we